Welcome to Overcoming Proposal Writer's Block, the OST webinar that you are all part of today. And I have to apologize for this upside-down apostrophe in a writer's. I could not make it with this font to actually face the right way. So right away, there are editors or editors at heart who are looking at this. I did not do this on purpose, and I'm keenly aware of that. So today, what we're going to talk about is the writer's block. But first, I wanted to tell some of you who don't know me a little bit about myself. Oh my God, I'm stuttering, even at the prospect of that. So I'm considered a proposal industry thought leader, and I'm on APMP NCAA Board of Directors. And if you guys don't know APMP, this is the Association of Proposal Management Professionals National Capital Area chapter, which happens to be the largest in the association. That is the chapter that's around the Washington, D.C. area. I'm also the editor and chair of the Executive Summary e-zine. So if you are a member or affiliated with this chapter, and by the way, you don't have to live in Washington, D.C. to be affiliated with this nicest chapter that holds a lot of really cool events. We have people flying from different states for our events all the time. So anyhow, if you're affiliated, you'll get the e-zine that we produce, and it has tons of helpful information on capture and proposal development and business development. Anything that has to do with proposals we put in there, so it's incredibly helpful. And our e-zine actually won the 2010 APMP Communications Award. So I'm also a published author for dozens of training courses and books, I regularly present at the APMP International, other events, other conferences. I'm trying to keep talking a little bit closer. I don't know, Rita, if I can, if this is better, please let me know. So I'm also a developer and instructor of the Master's Level 4 Graduate Credit course in Proposal Development for Stevens Institute of Technology. Gosh, you know, a lot of the I love me stuff here, but essentially my background is 16 years of BD experience, and I come from Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and Financial Times of London, and I've written a bunch of courses and materials because my mission is we could keep this at OST essentially. All of these materials could keep these internal, and we have a really high win rate, and we don't have to share them necessarily with the larger community, but we do put our materials and we don't hold anything back out because our mission is to make your jobs easier. Our mission is to make your jobs fun. When I started in this profession, I was seeing a lot of people suffering, a lot of people super serious, calling themselves dragon ladies, dragon men, you know, whip crackers, whatever it is, the proposal managers. They were just all too serious and too, I don't know, restrictive and not fun. And proposals can be a lot of fun, and hopefully this class is also going to help you make your job easier and make the job of others that you work with easier. So, why is this class for you? Why are you here? I wish I could ask you, I wish I could open the lines, but I can't because of the sound quality that would happen with so many people on the line, with hundreds of people on the line. So does any of these statements describe you? Do you struggle with the writer's block where it comes to proposals? I'm sure if you registered for this class, you probably have experienced some form of the writer's block or procrastination or whatever you call it that in fact prevents you from getting things done faster, that prolongs the suffering, especially if you're not a fan of writing. And have you pulled off the all-nighters? I mean, I actually was talking to someone who is a very accomplished proposal person, and he is in his 60s, and he still believes that sleep is overrated. Mind you, he's a military background, and that is a typical belief, I would say, for a lot of people who have been in the military, that discipline and dedication to work. But people who haven't been in the military, myself included, also have that same doggedness where it comes to proposals. But it's not necessary. There are ways to make it a little easier on you, unless you are absolutely, like for a lot of proposal consultants or for people who are just in a very small proposal shop and you're just juggling way too many things. You have way too many things on your plate, then perhaps you may pull an all-nighter here and there. I still do, unfortunately, but that's because I try to write several books and design courses within, I don't know, a span of a couple of weeks. So that's the goals that I set. But then again, the reason why I'm able to do stuff like that and bring you all this information is because I have applied the techniques that I'm teaching to you. So some of the techniques that I'm teaching to you today, those are hard-learned lessons. Those are born from failing first and then figuring out how to avoid the failures after that. So do you have, if you're here, if you have to write proposals more efficiently, so they don't take so much of your time. And I know time is one of those things that people don't make more of. In fact, a new client who was speeding a lot, and his whole explanation for that was that he was buying time. Every time he paid for a ticket, he was funding the state, and he was also buying time. He said, well, I have a lot of money. Time they don't make more of. I mean, you can agree or disagree with that philosophy. I know it's very dangerous, but that really tells you the lengths to which people will go to making more time, right? And this class will help you gain more time, the most precious commodity in the world sometimes. So, do you dislike writing wholesale? I know some of you are here because you hate writing. Plain and simple. I hope this will help. Now, do you want to gain professional skills to make sure that your sections are compliant and highly compelling so your proposals win? Well, this I'm going to tell you and give you some information today on where you can gain that knowledge. So I'll be about halfway through the class. I'll break for a little bit to tell you a little, some about the upcoming classes that we have, and then we'll resume and get more information to you about the writer's block and beating the pesky writing block. So I wanted to start with this procrastination flowchart, which I love. I did not design it, unfortunately. I would love to have the credit for this, but it's by Edom, which is, here's the website address on the bottom, http edom.com. And I want you to ponder this a little bit. I don't know if you guys have seen this before because I sure have sent this around, but you start in the upper left-hand corner and you ask, is there work to do? Is there proposal work to do? And, the answer may be no. Are you hungry? Yes. Well, have you started? Yes. Are you lying? No. Have you started? Yes. Are you lying? Yes. Is there a deadline? Will there be major consequences if you do it later? For you or for someone else? Yes, it's the deadline within 6 hours. Well, this is on proposals. This is something you absolutely want to avoid. Is that deadline within an hour? Oh my gosh, you're really in trouble now, right? Do you really need to do it? Or is there a way to not do this and blow off this deadline and go to the proposal manager, say, mea culpa? I am so sorry, I was busy, I was working on my day job, my grandma died, my dog ate my homework, whatever it is that you have to say. Do you, any way to get out of it? One of those great ways of just passing the joy down and seeing if somebody else would take over. Is it morally objectionable? Can you justify it anyways? Is someone paying you for this time right now? Well, now, this is especially relevant to the consultants out there, but same for employees. So, and then can they see what you're doing? If no, that you may enter the procrastination loop. And I'm going to try to carefully move my mouse because it usually has a little artifacts on it, but it seems to do just fine right now. Let me know if it does. Woo! Okay, so my screen just went black. I don't know what happened. I'm going to try to undo that and hope that it actually returns to normal. The software is a little funny sometimes. So, so let me go ahead and scroll forward. I hope you can still see me because somehow now it's my GoToMeeting is not on top, and I need it to be. So we'll go ahead and see if we can experience that. Sorry about that. A little bit of a technical difficulty happens on those on occasion. So human and technology interface. All right. So I'm getting the responses that you can still see the screen well. That's great. Thank you very much. You probably had a chance to go through this chart. I love this chart. It really talks about the things that you do while procrastinating. You know, things that people normally do, avoiding the writing of the sections, randomly browsing, going to social networks, IMing, checking email, seeing if there's anything new, anything you have to reply to, essentially going out to eat, talking to people, and there are lots of things that absolutely zap your valuable time. And I hope you can relate to what you're seeing here. Now, other common procrastination techniques I see on proposals all the time with people is clean the desk and organize the office. Do some filing and shredding. You know, it's amazing how many people I have a comment here. This has me written all over it. Yes, I know. Me too. Me too. So we'll get to the answer very soon. So another one is attend to the other tasks that haven't been completed to date. Another one is verify the facts and also go ahead and do some surfing in the process. So what happens is when people are writing for proposals, you all of a sudden get the temptation to stop writing and go ahead and verify some facts. You get stuck on this fact, you don't know the answer, you stop and you go ahead and verify that. Also, you realize that you need to urgently focus on your real work, right? Your day job. All of a sudden, all these tasks that were there and they were kind of okay now become a crisis. They may be a real crisis, but sometimes it may be just this crisis all of a sudden has risen in importance in your head just at the right moment when the writing has, has become so urgent that you cannot really postpone it anymore. You've got to respond to and organize all the emails, and what I usually do is I start filing them in different folders, and I realize, wow, I have 2,000 emails in my inbox. Return all the calls to the people you forgot in a month, and then the people you suddenly remember that you haven't talked to in a year. I have that too, unfortunately. So, how do you break free? Now, the first one may surprise you, some of you, I guess. Some of you are fairly aware of this, but take advantage of the mind-body connection. It is so easy to get glued to your desk and to just sit there and try to burst something that is new and exciting, or just to burst something, just to throw something over the wall. You know, a lot of people at this moment start cutting and pasting, perhaps even searching for things that could be used for the section. This is okay. This is actually productive. But then if this is causing you to procrastinate, you probably need to change something very quickly and to make a shift. So what I'm asking you to consider is, when you're experiencing a writing block, is to stimulate your physical state first. That is your first fail-safe action whenever you're experiencing and encountering proposal writer's block. The first way and the easiest way you can still do at your desk, it is to give yourself a massage to improve the circulation. You can massage your shoulders, you can rub your temples, anything that gets your blood pumping. And if you cannot, there are times when you don't even have a second to really spare, or you just don't feel like getting up, you're just so tired. This is one way to do this. Another one is to do stretching exercises. There are lots of stretching exercises you can do at your desk. You can Google that, so I'm not about to bore you with all the things that you could actually do. Just make sure that you don't get caught in some precarious position while your boss walks in. Another one is doing a breathing exercise. This one is very effective, but I don't know why I often forget to do that. And the way it works is you essentially inhale on the count of 10 or whatever it is that you can actually stand. Very slowly you inhale through the mouth, and then you hold your breath for as long as you can. You inhale very deeply and you hold it for until there's a point at which you start tingling all over and you're about to pass out. But that is when you're oxygenating your brain essentially. And your brain, when it gets oxygen, it starts functioning a little better. You get clarity. So you do about, I don't know, 3-4 of those breaths. And by the way, if you hold it too long, like 40 or something like that, then you may in fact pass out. So don't make yourself pass out. Get yourself worked up to that number. Those exercises essentially are all good for your health in general, but what they do is they change your mental state. And essentially they help you unblock yourself. Now, here's another technique, and this is my favorite. That one is go for a walk with repetitive motion and circulation that in fact release your brain to think more clearly. So whenever you're walking, whenever you're making this stepping motion, whenever your body is moving in rhythm, that is when you in fact are releasing your brain to think more creatively. If you have no idea what to write about or how to get started, this is one way to do it. So what I do, which is a little unusual, is I'll take a notepad with me. And sometimes when I don't have a notepad, so be it. I'll take a book or something to write on and a piece of paper, a few blank sheets of paper and a pen. And I will literally walk and pace around our backyard in circles until something comes in. Sometimes I feel fairly silly doing that. So I'll go like circle 3, circle 4, nothing comes in, nothing comes in, nothing comes in, and all of a sudden I get an idea. It's weird how it happens, but it actually works. All of a sudden I get an idea how to start a section, what to write about. You just get this clarity in your head. I'm not a runner, but there are some runners out there, and probably a lot of you can relate to the fact that you can think very clearly when you're running. Aside from the runner's high, which I never experienced and probably will never experience in my entire life, that is one other benefit of doing something like that. Another one is bring a dictaphone with you. You may be able to talk much more easily while you're, especially if you're running, much more easily into a dictaphone than writing. I happen to be fairly good at writing and not watching where I'm going, but at least I'm in my own backyard. If you have cars around, you may want to be careful as to where you're doing that. Like if there's a park behind your office building, that is a great place to do so. Now, let me see here. If all else fails, get a back rub from a colleague. As you see here, this is slightly unwanted, so you make sure that it's not an HR moment. But this is one way to change your state. Now, if you order yourself somehow a full body massage, that may be another way of procrastinating. So in this particular case, the idea is to get your blood and oxygen moving so that you can get unstuck, because it just takes just a little bit to push you over that edge into the creative area where you can in fact think clearly. So another technique is to not succumb to going stir crazy. So you have to make sure that you change the environment. I'm a big proponent of that. In fact, my team will testify to the fact that I sometimes work out of my armchair in the office. Sometimes I'm at my desk. Sometimes I'm on the couch. Sometimes I'm in bed. Sometimes I'm outside. I really don't like to be in one place. And on Sundays, I usually work out of a coffee shop. But I've been also known to take myself to a restaurant. I've worked out of the gymnastics school where my daughter is working out of. Every place that is different somehow helps you be a little bit more collected and a little bit more concise. A non-familiar environment in which you're in, or more familiar, but you can in fact you know that you're there for a finite amount of time, and you got to finish some tasks, you in fact tend to focus better. So you got to get away from the routine and get away from working behind your desk, first and foremost. If you need to sit down, don't be afraid to be like a kid all of a sudden again. Spread your work on the floor. Do whatever you need to do. Just close the doors in your office, especially if you're a woman in a skirt. So close the doors to your office. Hopefully they're not glass. So, or do that at home. I have the benefit of working from the home office. It's a little easier for me to pull off. The other one is avoid the danger of falling asleep, right? Pulling a George Costanza there under the desk. It's very easy on the couch to just slip from working on the computer to all of a sudden going, oh, let me take a nap. And in fact, when I was sleeping, I actually slept under my desk in a cubicle, and that's when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Julia. So, that I had an excuse at least, and I was working on proposals. All of this that I'm sharing with you, actually I've done through, and they work for me. I've gone through and they work for me. So another one is work outside. I had one of those computers where you have that screen where, in fact, you can be in bright sunshine and you can still work. If you have an ability to order your own computer or influence what your company buys you, then consider getting something that enables you to do that. There are computers that are called semi-ruggeds, and they usually you can specify what kind of screen you want. And there's a screen you can order that works anywhere, especially outdoors. And if you're a big outdoors type of person, get yourself something like that. Get yourself the right tools. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're worth it in the long run. Now, work at the cafeteria. If you're the kind of person who concentrates because they have lots of noise and lots of activity around them, and I have sometimes that state of mind when I need to have all this activity, all this noise to in fact help me focus on something. Sometimes it's just the opposite. I cannot be anywhere around people, but sometimes it may be just what the doctor ordered, and I have all this peaceful commotion around me, people going about their business, and I can just focus on what I do. I do a lot of those presentations in coffee shops. In fact, Harry Potter was written in coffee shops, if I remember correctly. So that is one area where you may want to jump to. Now, libraries, a great place for people who are just the opposite of the coffee shops, right? The coffee shops, hustle and bustle and music playing in the background, and you're sitting there in a chair sipping on whatever warm beverage of your choice is. Or you could go to a library where things are just very quiet. You could hear a pin drop, and that's another place for you to be in a different setting and working. Another one is create a Zen setting and work from home with no distractions. I'm a big proponent of working remotely. Just got to be the right kind of person to work remotely. Some people like to have a bit of a setting. They have their writer's space. They literally create a writer's space. It actually helps because your environment affects your creative abilities. And I know for some of you who are of engineering background, that may sound really weird, but trust me, I kind of tread the both worlds. I have an arts background now, so I'm heavily into doing a lot of technical things with my career in proposals and business development. So straddling both worlds helps me realize that some things that I see with highly creative people, they look silly to me because I just go, oh, this is so self-indulgent. How many hours have you spent integrating a massage and contemplating the nature, but there's something to it. There's something absolutely there when you in fact create a space that is your dedicated space to create. And by the way, proposal writing is still creative activity. So if you create that setting, that will be great. Now, the thing to beware of is to not kid yourself. If you are the kind of person who needs to be at work in order for you to produce work, that is where in fact, you may want to stay away and steer clear of that. So if you're a fan of another kind of tele, other than teleworking, then that is not for you perhaps, because that's a great way to procrastinate again and get into the writer's block. space. Now, the third way that I really love, my third group of techniques, should I say, is to alter your blood chem, and hopefully the healthy way, because the unhealthy way alters your blood chem, and then you get on that ride of a lifetime, right? So I will say almost healthy, because there are some people probably on this call who are very much about their health, probably live closer to the West Coast of the United States, but we have some East Coasters who are diehards, very healthy people whom I envy, and they may be here on the call as well. So shout out to me as well. Get energy foods, essentially, to alter your state. Because foods, you are what you eat for a reason, foods that actually alter what your thought process is. The effect, for example, I have given my proposal team Five Guys, and for you guys who don't know what Five Guys is this really delicious hamburger joint with French fries and peanuts. And after my team ate that, they were all asleep. If you eat something like that, if you eat the big steak meal, don't expect to beat your writer's block right after it. It's just not going to happen. Until that meal has worked through your system, you're probably going to be quite sleepy. So, one suggestion there is to eat a high-protein, low-sugar snack. Whatever floats your boat. I mean, if it can be just chicken, be chicken. Tuna, fish. My favorite is sushi sashimi, although it's not necessarily low carb, but that's one of my favorite proposal foods. And I hear some of you saying, ew, sushi, and I love sushi. So that's my ultimate proposal food. The other one is the high-protein yogurt snack or any kind of almonds. They really help here as well. Now, here's what to avoid as proposal staples. Pizza. This is one of the most common foods that are eaten in proposals. There are also cookies. That's one of those afternoon pick-me-ups, very, very common, evil, pure evil, and the chips. And those are the foods that perhaps you may not want to do, and that is highly related to your ability to write. Also, don't be afraid of the 5-hour energy. I'm not trying to promote it, and trust me, I'm not endorsed by them. One thing there is it's like a lot of vitamin B. It left me a little jittery in the beginning, but in fact, it was better than coffee, and in fact, helped me. But some of you may be taking the vitamins, and vitamin B shots are really good at getting your brain ability to write better. So the other technique that I use very effectively is assigning rewards and consequences to your writing. So you can reward yourself with foods that don't necessarily reflect well on your hips or whatever, your comfort foods. They essentially, if you've done well, you can have that piece of cheesecake. If you haven't, well, you get to avoid that. So now, let me take a little bit of a break. We are at about halfway of our class, and let me tell you a little bit about our unusual classes in proposal writing that may help you with some of the more substantial pieces besides the writing block. And then I'm going to get back to some of the techniques specifically that help with overcoming writer's block. So now that we've gone through my top 3 things that may be a little bit different, different from what you perhaps expected to hear. We're going to get into a little bit heavier stuff there and talk about the kinds of things that you could do to make your proposal writing a little easier. So the proposal writing workshop that's coming up very soon is writing better proposal sections in half the time. And the promise is pretty hefty, but this is something that you will be surprised you will get that benefit. A lot of people get that benefit. Most people do. Speed up their writing after they take this workshop. I've done that many times and had many surprised people out of that. It's for 2 days. It's in April 26 and 27 in North Bethesda, Maryland. It's coming up very soon. And it will not be repeated until November 2011. And what it does is it teaches speed writing techniques for compliant and highly persuasive proposal sections. So the curriculum highlights for the day one include outlining within the sections, because in proposals, that is the hardest part, is actually finding within the sections what to write. Proposal managers usually create an outline that is at section level height, and they sometimes even put in the requirements of what to put in. But then the writers have to struggle with what to actually say within those guidelines. And that is what the course is all about. How to take a section with the directions or without the directions from a proposal manager and figure out how to make it compliant and then compelling, of course. So what we also cover is proper proposal and section flow, and 8 W's that help write highly persuasive sections. The most important part of it is the 3 elements of the proposal speed writing system. This system will enable you to write better, faster. That is the heart of what I actually teach and what allows me to be as prolific in what I do. So what it also will show you how to do is to remove the fear of writing for the technical people from your subject matter experts. Because you can be someone who is attached to them and who is always interviewing them and who is always asking them how to get things, how to get things done, and trying to get the right information in time. But it's a lot easier if they, in fact, give you the sections that are fairly well written, and then you can polish, and you don't have to spend the time doing it. And you'll be surprised when they in fact, have the time to spend with those sections and to sit with them a little bit longer, and they do it correctly. You will get much better material so that you can realize the brilliance of your proposal team. And of course, there are speed writing techniques and tools. Writing is one of those things that is still done, aside from computers, aside from the modern desktop publishing tools or word processor, they're still done the old way. There's nothing that has really changed. The person gets in front, creates an outline, and then just sits there and agonizes until the section is birthed. And a lot of cut and paste going on and modifying, and otherwise, there's the storyboarding, of course, that comes in, and sometimes that can work well, and sometimes it doesn't, and people just start writing after they throw out their storyboards. So essentially, there are lots of ways to do it the long way. Speed writing techniques and tools are there to help you do it the short way. So the Day 2 curriculum of this workshop is going to show you more techniques for overcoming the writer's block. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We don't have enough time in this 1 hour to show you all of them. So you can find the techniques that actually work for you to shatter your own writer's block. What we also go into is the advanced stuff. Key attributes of persuasive proposal language. What makes it, in fact, persuasive? There are also 3 elements of a story and where to fit a story in the proposal. That is something that proposals very rarely touch. 4 steps for developing a metaphor. And metaphor is one of those things that is very rarely used in proposals. Here I'm using the visual metaphor a lot to, in fact, this is a metaphor to show you how your proposal can stand out. The 4-part self-editing checklist. That is something that I have developed that helps people who are not necessarily editors edit intelligently. Readability tools and metrics to improve your sections. So there are ways to measure how good your writing is. How to automate your editing. And there are tools to do that and techniques to do that as well, believe it or not. Also, how to make your writing less wordy and what is a bad proposal language. And the last part of the class is the focus boxes, graphics, and other tools to make your sections shine. Essentially, this is how it works. We're going to look at the foundation where most get stuck, is essentially how to make your sections compliant and make sure that they're also compelling, how to outline them. The 3 elements of the proposal writing speed system, and I'm going to talk about them right after this little interlude, and advanced elements of persuasive writing, such as stories and metaphor, and then, of course, additional persuasion tools, and finally, editing and polishing your text with helpful techniques, tools, and automation. Now, the other class that you may want to check out is also to further speed up your proposal writing abilities, to shave off even more time and effort from your proposal writing tasks while getting your win probability higher. And essentially, what if you knew, on top of being able to write very quickly and efficiently, how to coax all the right information out of your SMEs, how to get them to give you all the facts, but in a matter of hours rather than days, or whatever it takes you to sit with them and haw and brainstorm in a war room and run those strategy sessions. What if you could do that a lot faster? What if you knew exactly what you needed to talk about in each section, and you could get information ahead of time, during capture perhaps, before you even had the exact requirements for the proposal, and make all the right decisions? What if you learned all the shortcuts to proposal brainstorming? What if you knew how to do it faster? So you may want to consider this class. Again, it's right there after the second class, and it's not offered until November. Here's what it's going to talk about. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details. You can find out on our website. Here are the links to register. It's essentially a win theme development process that gets you done with really good win themes within, again, hours, not days. It's a very efficient process that we have developed over the years, and now we are sharing it in a workshop. The actual workshop where you get to practice doing that, the CONOPS, Concept of Operations Development Techniques, 6-part formula for executive summaries, management section checklist of what it is that you need to think through to plan essentially your project and your writing, and the workshop for developing that section. And during the day 2, we're going to look at the risk section pitfalls, which are usually pitiful in most proposals, overcoming common past performance mistakes, how to develop a compliant past performance template, and the other things there. You can actually look at the table of contents. Now, back to our tips to beating the writer's block. Trick your mind that you're not writing a proposal, essentially. Playing tricks on your mind really works. You can do miracles. You can create miracles. People can stop their own pulse or slow down their own pulse, should I say, in breathing, and affect their physical state. So why not use it for proposal writing? So controlling your mind essentially is a serious strength. So sometimes you don't want to write the regular way. You're sitting in front of the computer and you essentially don't feel like typing, or nothing is coming out of you. So take a piece of paper and start doing it the old way. And sometimes you may be able to start yourself and get past the writer's block, where you can switch back to the computer and then continue writing. Another one is Dragon Naturally Speaking. It's one of my favorite tools. It's a piece of software. When I got it, it ran about $300, and I got the deluxe edition with a nice microphone. But essentially, it is a speech recognition software, and it works very well. You train it up a little bit, and then you're able to get your text, your section, dictated into your computer, and in fact can dictate your emails. Or do whatever you want to do with that. Or a dictaphone, a digital recorder. A lot of your smartphones and iPads or Galaxy tablets, they have the functionality where you can record your talking, and then they of course they also have the Dragon software that's done just for them. freeconferencepro.com is one of those places where you can get a free telephone number where you can dial in from 2 phones, press *9, and you can record whatever it is that you were supposed to write. If it's easier for you to talk and speak while you're writing, then that's the best way to do that. Audio Acrobat, that usually runs you about $20 a month for a subscription, and it's very handy. You essentially dial it from the phone. You don't have to dial from another phone. The quality is really good, and that can record it for you. But then you would probably have to have somebody else subscribe it unless you just want to listen to it yourself. And then the very process of speaking, you don't have to finish speaking. You just have to start that conversation, and then you will be able to see that see that you're already moving forward and you got your train of thought together, and now you can type. So another one is pretend that you're writing an email to a friend. Sometimes people have easier times writing emails. You know, we write hundreds of emails per day sometimes, responding to people. So some people are very much of a fan of a phone still, but a lot of people, in fact, hide behind the email, and they're quite proficient at email. So why not take this proficiency and, you know, tell yourself, hey, I'm writing an email about a proposal. Open up a window in an email. Make sure that you save the draft or have the draft saved automatically, and write that email there. So pretend that you called your friend to report a juicy gossip. That is the real trickery, right? But especially if it's something you enjoy, then you know, you may want to tell them a little bit about this proposal, or imaginary friend, or whatever you need to do there. Also, start writing in the middle or the end. You do not have to start with the beginning. Sometimes the section introductions are the hardest. Why don't you start at the end? What is it you want to do? Or start midpoints. Start with what you know, and then you can add whatever it is you don't. Nobody set the rules that you have to start at the very beginning. Or you may even want to recruit a family member to interview you. You may not have a luxury of a colleague or somebody else to help you out. So why don't you pretend you're being interviewed about the subject of your section, and then that perhaps will enable you to get going with your writing. Another great technique is managing your writing time. So what I will ask you to do, if you don't have a software utility or an app on your smartphone or something, purchase a simple kitchen timer. For some people, it's even symbolic to actually get something that is physical, that actually symbolizes the act of you doing the writing right now. Stop dreading it, because the writing of the proposal should not take you hours. You can do things a lot quicker, and here's how you do that. Productive writing, the actual writing, is done in smaller chunks of time. If you are trying to free up a chunk of hours, let's say I'm going to free up my whole Sunday to finish the section. So right now it's Tuesday and my section is due on Monday. I still have whole Sunday, and I'm going to walk off the whole Sunday, and nothing is going to happen. And of course on Sunday you have an emergency, and then nothing happens by Monday. So that's not a very good way to go. So what you want to do is you want to plan between whatever activities that you have the writing in smaller chunks of time. So what are those smaller chunks of time? 15 to 20 minute intervals. They work best for the intense writing without checking the email or without answering the phones. So they enable you to focus on the specific task at hand. And this is when you shut your door. You're just saying, you set your timer, and you go exactly for those 15 or 20 minutes. I'm gonna just write. Nothing is gonna stop me. I'm gonna focus on this. And this period of concentrated thought is what helps you burst through some of those blocks or some of those ways to figure out what it is that you need to do. Now, there's another way to trick your mind, of course, setting this time. The way that it works is you will have an easier time starting your writing because it's no longer a daunting task. Anybody can do it for 15-20 minutes, right? You can suffer for 15 or 20 minutes, but you can pretty much do anything where it comes to proposal writing. And what happens a lot of the times, sometimes you will not want to stop because you will be too into it. And oh, by the way, if anybody has any questions, you guys please type those questions. I'm able to see them, or any comments or anything that you want me to focus on. Now, the ultimate proposal writers blockbusters. They actually happen to be the key elements of the proposal speed writing system, and let me talk about them. The first one is the psychology. So the first very important point you gotta change about your writing abilities or beliefs about your writing abilities is all those voices that you keep hearing from yourself about your own abilities. A lot of people are so critical. They're very critical thinkers. They're so, let's say they have the Myers-Briggs J very active, where they can look at their own writing and they go, this is no good. And what they're looking at is a lot of times is the first draft. The first draft of anything. I mean, gosh, I wish I'd show you my first drafts for some of those things, and you'd just be appalled. The reason why is the first drafts are usually not so good for most people. But a lot of people judge themselves based on that first draft. And what they do is they sit in front of a screen and they type a sentence, they go back and they edit that sentence and polish that sentence, and then they write another sentence, and then an hour later they have a paragraph. Woohoo! That's why things are so torturous. And all the while they have the voices talking in their head. So a quick tip, and we cover that on in a lot of detail in our speed writing system, but the quick tip is to stop your voices temporarily in your head while you are writing. Don't tell yourself that you're no good. Don't tell yourself that this is bad. Just get it out on paper. And whenever the voice comes up, acknowledge it, recognize it, file it away. Nobody's draft, first draft especially, is perfect. And it takes a lot of editors and writers and reviewers to get your section to that perfect state. Now, the next tip that I wanted to leave with you is how to learn and practice the correct writing process. People normally don't write the way the writing should be done. In fact, the act of writing has 3 phases. It's the brainstorming or thinking or planning a section, then the actual writing, and then finally the editing and the polishing. And there is the specific amount of time that should go into each step. But essentially, writing itself has 3 parts to it. And when people run into problems is when they start mixing all those parts and doing them out of order. So how many times have you been on a proposal and you haven't made all the major decisions, you haven't thought through all the sections, but all of a sudden you're tasked with the assignment to write a section. And that's not very productive. That's not very useful. So this is one place where you have to make sure that you do not start writing before you know exactly what you're going to be writing about. Otherwise, you're going to experience a writer's block. And another one is writing itself. People have a very hard time writing without editing themselves. That's a very simple one. When you're writing, don't go back and edit. Just get it out on paper. Just bake the cake. Finish the section. Now, earlier in the class, I talked about the fact that you will have, when you're procrastinating, you'll have the propensity to go back and verify facts. That is a very common tendency on a proposal where you don't know the answer to something and all of a sudden you get the urge to stop writing, to run out, and to verify the answer. Resist doing that. In fact, a lot of very experienced proposal writers will go ahead and they will put a blank in that place where the fact should go, and they will continue writing. And that's what I advise you do. Just highlight or just put a blank and continue writing that. A lot of experienced proposal writers, when they work with SMEs, will go ahead and write the whole section without knowing any information. But then they will have a lot of blanks for the SMEs to fill in. So this is, think like them. Think that you don't have to have all the facts, but here's what I want to say about it. I already understand the subject enough for me to know where I want to take it. I just don't know all the pieces yet. And then you go ahead and then you find out and fill in up to you've written the whole section out. So that's one technique. There are many, many, many techniques on how to write fast, but this is one of the most important ones. The editing itself, that should take place after the writing is done. After you're done with the first draft, this is when you can just let yourself loose. You can go ahead and shift the paragraphs around. You can go ahead and rewrite the sentences, verify the facts, check compliance. If you want to do grammar, go ahead and do grammar. If you want to spell check the whole thing, spell check the whole thing. You do readability checking, and then that's something I highly advise is to actually look at readability, section readability. That is essentially what is the grade level at which your section reads. So those are all the activities of the proposal writing, but by far the hardest one is actual writing itself, and that is usually when you're mixing all the stages. So when you're trying to do all the compliance checking, when you're trying to do all the voice and all the grammar, while you're creating the section, that is a guarantee that you're going to run into the writer's block, and it is going to be ugly. So the third part of the speed writing system is the tools. So you got to leverage the 21st century writing tools. And there are many. There is absolutely no reason why in the second decade of the 21st century we have to rely on just a computer, on just a word processor, and our heads and fingers to write the sections. Absolutely no reason to. So we talked about some of the tools like Dragon Naturally Speaking. That is the one that can write for you while you talk, and then you edit. What a concept. So essentially, and it's not expensive, like $300, right? Especially if you work for a company, you convince somebody to buy that for you, and you're really a valuable asset to the company. That shouldn't be a problem. So, and I think the apps are cheap for iPhones and other smartphones. So another one is the tool that I'm going to leave you with is my absolute favorite. It's Dr. Wicked's. Dr. Wicked's, oh, the name is escaping me, actually, my favorite tool. There you go. Dr. Wicked's Write or Die. There you go. Dr. Wicked's Write or Die is a very inexpensive piece of software that punishes you for not writing, essentially, and punishes you in silly ways. It's not necessarily, well, some of them are not so silly, but it starts flashing a screen when you are stopped, when you have stopped writing. It starts beeping at you, starts playing really annoying music, and does a lot of really fun things. But it's worked miracles. People essentially just literally break records in which they get to finish the sections. And oh, by the way, it times you. So you don't need to buy an egg timer if you have the Write or Die. That is a great way for you to get some writing done in a jiffy. So what I want to leave with you today is you got to love the proposal writing, and it will love you back. So you got to get to win a lot, and generally speaking, you're going to have your life be more enjoyable if you are in this profession, if you have to respond to proposals for a living or just doing it for your company until you hire somebody who does it for a living, or you're a proposal consultant. So essentially, use the techniques. Yes, it is possible to be a prolific writer even if you're not a born Stephen King. And most people have not been taught to write properly and beat the writer's block. And some people may think that some of the things I shared with you today may be ridiculous or too simplistic. But I'm going to challenge them and ask, do you practice them? You've signed up for this class, but do you do all those things, and do they work? So try them. If you don't practice it, it just remains one of those, oh, I did something fun in the afternoon or not so fun. Ask yourself, have you done this? Have I tried it? has it worked? And if it hasn't worked, why? So, most writing workshops. Learn how to write. Most writing workshops are about editing. I have researched and looked at a lot of workshops, and especially anything that has to do with proposal writing, it is all about the grammar. It's all about what words not to use. That's important, but it's a tiny little component of it. No wonder you forgot and purged that from your mind safely, if you have. So, now most critical thinkers, they have to overcome many blocks to allow themselves to write. Sometimes the smarter you are, the harder it is to get something out on paper for you. And that is one of those things to know about yourself. You're probably having a difficulty writing, not because you don't have enough smarts to do it, it's because you're too smart. So you don't have to have a special talent to be a great proposal writer. A lot of people have been taught all their lives, or told, or thought of somebody, oh, he's a poet, or she's a writer, it's easy for them, they have the gift of gab. The truth is, you don't have to have a special talent to be a great proposal writer. Proposal writing is relatively simple, and there are tools that break it down so much that it ceases to be that art, or haiku, or iambic verses, or whatever it is that you made it out in your mind to be. That is not the case. This is fairly straightforward, simple, as long as you know the facts. There's a fairly set number of techniques in which you can present those facts. And if you stick to those techniques, you're going to be very successful in winning proposals. And as a proposal manager, you can make your life easier by teaching your SMEs to write better and faster, and also to beat the writer's block. So I hope you can use a lot of those techniques and see and implement them. They're simple, yes, but if you implement them, they will work for you. So now I have a comment here. Alessia, I would like to add something to your list of things to do if you're having trouble writing. I take a shower. Cool. So that's a way to change your physical state. I found that some of my best ideas come in to me when I am in the shower. Yeah, I actually love that. That is one way to change your physical state. Absolutely. Well, guys, if you have any more questions, please shoot them to me. This is our contact information. Remember, we have a lot of classes. This one was of a lighter nature. But I hope that you get to implement a lot of this stuff because it's going to make a huge difference. We have more classes that you can download. They're going to be there for just a couple of months longer. And then after that, we're going to be freeing up the space for new webinars. This is at ostglobalsolutions.com/training/schedule. And of course, you can get in touch with either Lisa, who is heading up our consulting division, and she places consultants to help you win proposals, Alex Brown, who heads up our business development service and training division, and myself. You also have my direct information here if you need to reach me, and if you have any comments or questions. And I hope to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the class today. Thank you very much. And we will post the recording on our website, and you'll be able to access it, I hope, hopefully today. Thank you. Bye-bye.